I'm Kate Ruffner. I'm one of the experts here on Flourish. I am an expert in social media, copywriting, and virtual assisting, which is a part of business development. And I am delighted to bring you this training today. I was originally going to do a training about goals, but with all the requests coming in for this training on IFTTT, I thought let's switch and do what you need because I am here to help you. Before we begin, I just wanted to say a couple things. As you can hear, my voice is not up to snuff. I will be pausing once in a while to drink some water. If I have to pause to cough or sneeze or something, I will head up and pause the recorder for a minute. I am feeling a lot better. I just sound really horrific. So please, I'm doing really great. So don't hear this and think that I'm feeling poorly. Second, I normally present with a lot of slides and a lot of formality. This time, I'm just going to do this off the cuff. I've got some things planned to show you examples of how to use this software. But for the most part, I don't have any particular outline, so this will be less formal than you're used to if you've seen any of my previous presentations. All right, so let's get started. One last thing. I am also going to make this shorter than I normally do because what I'd really like to do is open it up for questions when we're done. So I'll do a base presentation. If you start using IFTTT and you run into trouble, please post a question in the thread and I will try to make a screencast within the next 48 hours or so to answer that question. If you post a question after that, I'll do what I can to answer it. But keeping up with the threads sometimes like this and making screencasts is really tricky for me. I have a 2-year-old who really likes to be loud when I'm recording. He just really wants to be a performer when he grows up. So that can make things a little complex. So I will do the best I can after those 48 hours. And so, I will not be online when this presentation goes live, but I will be online shortly after that. So just know I will be paying attention. Post your questions. I would love to hear them and I would love to answer them. Even if I can't do a screencast, I can probably walk you through picture by picture and do a tutorial that way as well. All right, IFTTT, it stands for if this, then that. What it means is it is a way to connect one app to another app. The best use case example I can give you is if you post something on Twitter, 2 days later you want it to post on Facebook, you can set up what's called an applet right here to go from Twitter to Facebook over a certain period of time. A word of caution about social media. This is the only downside I've found to this app. Twitter does not format things the same way that Facebook does in their back-end code. So when you pull something from Twitter and put it on Facebook, there can sometimes be some formatting issues that are a little bit tricky. So just keep that in mind that you're going to want to monitor that over time and make sure. Check-in every day is probably good enough. And it's still getting posted on Facebook. If you're checking in every day to see what's posted on your Facebook page and then running into edit super fast, that's fine. It just depends on how much time you want to spend with that. If you want something to automatically post to Twitter and to Facebook separately, I recommend going with something like Meet Edgar, Buffer, Sendable, many of these other clients that can just do that natively within the app. But IFTTT is a good free option to start, particularly if you're not posting long content or content that requires a bunch of back-end code. And that would be things like very weighty pictures, any link that redirects several times, anything like that will have trouble going from one to the other on social media. I've never found any other problem on any of these other apps that I've used. I have about 62 IFTTT things going at any given time. This account that I'm on right now is actually a practice account, so I could show you things. But my real account, it is several pages long when it comes to the applets that I am using. I had to pause to cough. Okay, so the next thing we're going to go to is when you log in, it takes you to this page called Discover. And these are applets that are already created. You don't have to do anything. And you can see their popularity here. 22,000 people are using this. 37,000 people are using this. Let's talk about this anatomy here. This says works with Evernote or works with Google Drive or works with, and this is a very important distinction, this one works with Gmail. If you go down here and you look at this one right here, this one works with email in general. This one only works with Gmail. So if you have a Hotmail account or something else, you want to look for ones that work with just generic regular email. Okay. All right. I picked one that works really well, just as sort of an example. So let's click over there. So that's this one right here. Tomorrow's forecast calls for rain. Get an email. Awesome. I can think this would be useful in a business scenario. Someone like an event planner or wedding planner, someone who, I worked for a client who actually planned the commencements at local colleges. How cool a job is that? Anyway, so we're going to click over here. You have this whole, it's exactly like what you saw over here. And then to turn it on, to get it started, you're just going to click turn on. It's going to bring you to a configuration page. Tomorrow's forecast calls for rain. Get an email. Receive notifications when this applet runs. Since you're getting an email already, it probably will not be useful to you get a notification that this ran because you're getting an email notifying you that it's going to rain. So you know that it's running. So I'd probably turn that off in this case. But that would be useful, and I'll show you a use case where that would be useful in just a minute. This action will send an email up to 5 recipients from your Gmail account. So the first one that I want it to send to is me. And it is going to send to me from me. That's weird, but there it is. Then I'm going to have it send to my husband's account. This is not his actual Gmail. I'm just putting that in there for fun. And then, because I also want him to know when it rains so that he can get up a little earlier for work, because when it rains here in Salt Lake, it gets a little weird on the roads. Ingredient, I can add tomorrow's condition. I can add the condition image, the URL to the image of what it's expected to be. I can add the high and low temps. I can add tomorrow's date. I can add the forecast URL so that you can click through and actually see what time it's supposed to rain. So I can add all of those things. And if you just do that right there, you'll see that it adds it coded for IFTTT. And then I can click save, and that will turn that on. Now my applet is completely active. Now I don't really need this, or let's say it's a couple weeks from now and I've just decided that I don't really care if it rains because I'm just going to carry an umbrella. Or let's say you live in Portland and it's the rainy season. What? You're gonna get a lot of emails. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this off, and this is how you do that. Straight where you turned it on before, you're just going to click right there. Slides to the other side, turns itself off, and says, and now it's off. It is really quite simple. Totally awesome. There are some other settings up here in the little wheel that you can get. You can go in and configure it once more so that you could take off an email address or add a new one. You could decide that you don't want the forecast URL anymore. It's going to say tomorrow's condition tomorrow. The body, it will show you what it includes in the body. And then an attachment URL, you can add something here that say you want to add an attachment with tomorrow's condition. For whatever reason, those attachments can be useful for stuff that you don't want to include in there. Now, I like to keep my IFTTT applets pretty organized, so I'm just going to go ahead and delete this one because I really don't need it. And that's how you would just delete it from your whole applet list. This is my current applet list. Prepare car for snow. Welcome to Utah. Let me just tell you. Text me the weather every morning. Make Star Gmail a task in Todoist. I use a combination between Todoist and Trello to manage all of my tasks and my client tasks. So this keeps me going on both of those, and I wanted to test it out in a new account just in case. Email yourself this photo. That's something that on my phone, this little camera right here is the camera on my phone. And all I have to do is take a picture using the camera widget on my phone, which is an IFTTT widget, and it will automatically email me the photo. So I never again have to sit down and get the photos off my iPhone. How amazing is that? I also email myself a random GIF or GIF. I never know how to say that. I'm a freaking social media expert, and I never know how to say GIF or GIF. I'm pretty sure it's GIF, but I've heard arguments for GIF. Anyway, one of those things, which is an animated thing, and that's whenever I find an animated picture on Facebook or Instagram that I really want, I have a push button on my phone that can do that as well. This one's a little more complex to set up, but it's so cool. I love getting the weather every morning in my text messages. It's so cool to wake up to that and just know what the weather's going to be that day. All of those are there, and then on the activity panel you can see when everything ran last. So this applet was deleted, it was turned off, it ran. This is a place where if you assign this to, say, a VA to do for you, you can go ahead and go in and check that everything is set up correctly on the back end. All right, great. So next use case, I found another one here on Discover. When you receive an email attachment, automatically save it to Dropbox. I have one client that uses Dropbox. I don't use Dropbox. If you'd like to know the reason why, feel free to private message me. It's a whole long haranguing story, which is sad, but there it is. But my one client loves Dropbox, and sometimes she sends me attachments as a means to automatically save it to Dropbox. One of the things that I would like to caution you about, sorry, I had to sneeze, is that if you are logged into Dropbox as someone else, it will save the email attachment to that Dropbox, whichever one you're logged in as. So if you're someone that works with clients, or you're logged in as your husband's Dropbox, or maybe your wife's work or something, like whatever it is, that it will save to the Dropbox that you're logged into. So just make sure that you're going to be pretty regularly logged into this Dropbox, and then that way when you get an email attachment, it will save. So let's turn this one on. And then it's going to bring up this lovely configure screen again. When you receive an email, back up any attachment in your email account to your Dropbox account. Receive notifications when this applet runs. This one is one that I'm going to leave on because I like getting confirmations about this one, that it actually sent it to Dropbox, because then I can set up a filter in Gmail to automatically forward that to my client so that she knows that it was saved to her Dropbox. We set up a folder together. It's called something else, but email attachments is a pretty good folder. When it says Dropbox folder path, what it's talking about is where in Dropbox it will hold it. Also, you can just leave it in the main part of Dropbox by deleting that. It's got a 30 meg size. That's not huge. It's not small. You're good. But just so you know, if you're trying to send pictures that are 1 or 2 gig, this is not going to be the app for you. You can add ingredients, you can add the body, the subject, attachment, all these things to be saved with that file as a part of naming that file, or also in conjunction with that file. I don't usually recommend doing that with Dropbox in particular. I found some difficulty saving some stuff that way. The name just got way too long. But you'll notice here on Received App, that can be very useful. If you are receiving customer communication, you can have things saved as what time they were received, so that if you have someone you're working with, or if you plan to go through customer things once or twice a day, you can take a look at those in the order in which they were received. So that's a great little thing there. And then the message ID, that's a good way to separate out which messages go where. That's something that will help you find things in Gmail should you get tens of thousands of emails a day. So we're going to go ahead and save this. I'm not going to save it, but you would save it, and then it would save it and say, now it's active. So that's fabulous. That one worked really well. But what if these are not your jam? What if you're looking for something that is a little more, something that, an app that you actually use? Maybe you don't use Dropbox or Gmail at all. What you can do is you can go to search, and let's say that you would like to see whether or not there's a post office app. There isn't. I happen to know that on IFTTT. But there is a post office arm on Zapier, Zapier. Zapier is like the paid version of IFTTT. They do have a different backend. It's structured differently so that it does post within apps natively. Unfortunately, maintaining that code takes a lot of money, so it is 100% worth it to pay for that. It costs about $25 a month for the basic plan. And that sounds super expensive until you consider if it saves you even just 5 hours per month, what's your time worth? If you're paying yourself something like $20 or $40 or $50 an hour, and a half an hour of that pay would go towards saving you 5 hours a month, it's automatically paid for itself. So that's Zapier. I'm not going to do anything on that because it's a little more complex. That would take a little more in-depth explanation. But the principles are all the same. So if you use IFTTT, you really can figure out Zapier, and it's fairly intuitive, and their customer service is really great. IFTTT has fairly responsive customer service too. Free is good, and I always encourage that. But if something like the post office does not exist here, about that, had to sneeze. If the post office doesn't exist on IFTTT and it does exist on Zapier, then that might be something that you would consider doing. Zapier does have a free arm as well. I use them in conjunction with each other, and I actually use the free version on Zapier. So I use the two of them together, and it works great. I've covered all my bases pretty much. So let's say for a minute that I want to have all of the articles that I star in Gmail sent to Pocket. Pocket is this great little app that I use to save all of my articles for reading later. So I have a ton of articles because I'm a content management specialist. I go through a lot of articles in any given month. So when I find something that I want to read on Facebook, but I don't have time to read it right then, I put it in Pocket, and then later I can go back to it. Pocket is connected to IFTTT, and so is Gmail. So let's go take a look right now. Let's look at the Pocket applets. When you save an article in Feedly, save it in Pocket too. That's a really good one in case you use Feedly. Send starred items in Pocket to Evernote. Ooh, that's a good one because if I star it in Pocket, it will automatically be saved in Evernote, which is my long-term storage. Save the tweets you like in Pocket. That's really cool. Save popular New York Times articles to Pocket so that I don't ever have to scan New York Times. I can just go read them on Pocket. That's totally awesome. Looks like it's not in here. But if you did find one of these and you're like, oh, that's the one that I wanted, that's great. But it's not in here. So we're going to go to make an applet. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to choose a service, and I'm going to choose Gmail. So I'm going to start here. It says choose trigger. New email in inbox. No, new email in inbox from. Actually, I think that it is this one. New email in inbox labeled. So this trigger fires every time a new email arrives in your inbox with the label you specify. That is not any of those, but let's try this one. Well, maybe I'll just create a label and call it Pocket. So I'm going to create the label, create the trigger. So now whenever anything is brought into my Gmail and it's labeled Pocket, then we want to go over here. So it makes it so simple. You just clicked on the trigger of what would happen if it's labeled Pocket in Gmail, then this. And I want to go to Pocket right here. And I just want to save it for later. This action will add a new item to your Pocket queue. Cool. So first attachment, private URL. That's awesome. Tags, I'm going to tag it IFTTT so I know that it was saved via IFTTT. And just in case I can add any of these other things, again, there's that received at so that I can read it in order. I read in order of what interests me, and usually I go to Pocket because I'm looking for something specific for a client. So I don't usually need to have it received at, but you can. And the tags, you can include as many tags as you want. So I can include the tag Flourish so that it's there. I can also add an ingredient here so that the tag is what the subject was or what the label was or from address or something like that. So if I got a lot of emails from someone like, say, Seth Godin, and I wanted to tag that every time so that I made sure to read those, I could do the from address as its own tag. So that's pretty spectacular. Just make sure you add that comma. Now we're going to create that action. I'm just going to go take a look here. And it should add it automatically because I did configure it so that everything was set up. Awesome. It works with Gmail and Pocket. If new email and inbox labeled for Pocket, then save later for Kate Ruff. Yeah, receive notifications when this applet runs. I don't need that. So I'm going to turn that off because if I just save it to that email in inbox, I'm going to know that it goes to Pocket. I don't like getting a lot of notifications anyway, and I can always go back and look at that email to go and look at it later. Okay, so finish. Score. I made a new applet. And now the other cool thing is other people can use this. So one thing to note, this applet can be delayed by up to an hour. So if you save it to Gmail and then you take off from your desk right then, you're sitting on the train and you're like, cool, I want to read this right now, but then it's not in Pocket, that's probably why. IFTTT takes a little bit of time, and it's because of the way that it speaks to each one of the apps. It's not ever intrusive, which is the coolest part about it. Apps love IFTTT because it's so nice about how it communicates. The back end is written in a very organized way. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this off. I don't need double that. I have many, many Pocket applets set up on my other account. I'm going to turn that off, and there you go. This is the basic primer. I just wanted to give you an idea of what this would look like and how all of these things would work together. There are so many things that you can do with this. So if you can imagine something that bothers you, you can probably imagine a an IFTTT applet to go with it. So hit me with your best shot. Let's see if we can come up with something that would work that way between two apps that are currently bothering you, or even within the same app. I have a lot of things that run within Gmail itself or run within Evernote itself. So you keep an eye on that and look for things that can be added here. I think you'd be surprised by the number of things you can fit in here. And since IFTTT is free, you've got a lot of bandwidth to run things in here. Hard flourishers, I would love to hear from you as far as your questions go. If you want to go a little more in depth, I am available at any time for a Flourish mentor call. If you would like someone to set up your IFTTT for you, please contact me. That is a service I offer, and I have not yet met an IFTTT that I couldn't tame or conquer or organize, and I love it so much, so I'm passionate about getting really good at it. I am so thankful that you stuck with me despite my voice, despite all the pauses, and I look forward to your questions. Let's chat.